Will Harry Potter ever die?
Though it's been 5 years since the last film in the series came out, Harry Potter is still incredibly popular. It was a great phenomenon of our generation. It's still all over the internet. Hell, I can't go a day without seeing someone in my Facebook feed post some reference, tame joke, or glorification of Harry Potter. It's ridiculous. Is this series more lasting than I had anticipated? Is it really worthy of being such a staple of pop culture?
Well, I too was part of the Potter generation, and growing up, I loved it the same as everyone else. The film franchise in particular brought exceptional attention to the series, and, like the books, everyone seems to love them.
But the books and films are two different entities. The books, though not particularly well written, are flooded with interesting characters, worlds, stories, and most importantly for a children's fantasy series, imagination. Did the films incorporate all of these things well and add on to them accordingly?
With Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them on the horizon, I've decided to look back at the Harry Potter film series and see how good they are objectively.
To disregard the nostalgia and see whether they really deserve to be timeless classics of entertainment, or just a sensation of one generation. I expect I'll make some enemies, this fanbase being as large and committed as it is, but I'm prepared to be honest.
Regardless, Harry Potter will always be in some way special to me.
But I want to be able to look at it critically, and see if as adults we can get out of it the same as we got as children.
Let's begin with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Yeah, philosophers, none of that sorceress crap.
The book was such a surprise hit, of course the film was expected, being greenlit and then released only 4 years after the initial novel. Series author J.K. Rowling notoriously wanted Terry Gilliam to helm the project, as did Gilliam himself.
The director of Time Bandits, Brazil, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas doing Harry Potter? That sounds amazing!
But Warner Brothers went with the safer choice of choosing Chris Columbus, the director of Home Alone, to make the movie.
And while the end result isn't as eccentric or unique as Gilliam would have made it, Columbus still managed a very good job, enough so that he was given the sequel as well. Though I do think it was the people around Columbus rather than Columbus himself who may succeed.
After all, he did also make Pixels. The Harry Potter origin story introduces the orphan boy living with his tormenting aunt and uncle, who on his 11th birthday discovers he's a wizard. He's rescued from his poor life and is revealed to have been the boy who lived, having mysteriously defeated the evil sorcerer Voldemort as an infant, when said Dark Lord killed his parents and gave him his distinctive lightning bolt scar. And so he's taken to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, where he'll learn magic and fully join the Wizard Society, which exists alongside but hidden from the normal human, called Muggle world. He studies spells, makes friends, but also learns of a conspiracy, and a relic that's being hidden in the school with the power to bring Voldemort back. In many ways, Harry Potter is a fantasy, and I'm not talking about the genre. Every kid wanted to be part of a world where they were special and heroic, where their peers would cheer them on as they won a sporting match or outsmarted a bully.
Regardless of what it became, I think that's why Harry Potter resonates so well with kids.
Harry's not that interesting a protagonist at the start, making him very easy for readers to project themselves onto. And Hogwarts is such an idyllic, beautiful setting, but also mysterious and puzzling enough to spark secrets and adventures. It's school, but fun.
And nowhere is that more apparent than in this film.
It captures the scope and wonder amazingly, immersing you better than most movies into its environment. I think the production design is to thank for that. Every set of the wizard world is intricately designed and detailed. Yeah, they shot at actual castles which give off a natural magical quality, but they also made enormous wonderful sets. As someone who's actually been to these sets, I can say with certainty they are pretty amazing, and almost on their own translate perfectly the series' magical and mysterious atmosphere. They're creative and show an insane amount of dedication.
Almost nothing at Hogwarts is done on the green screen. It's all real and it shows. The lighting and use of shadows makes for a brilliant mood that's just a delight to take in.
This in addition to the superb costuming, a great mix of Victorian and somewhat medieval influences, and a John Williams score that's as usual pretty damn good, give the world a tangibility that really makes you want to believe it's real. An enormous feat for a live-action kids film.
The story is a pretty good one, but its execution does have some problems.
This film isn't just telling its own story, it's also introducing a world, which is a pretty difficult task. In fact, one of my problems with the series on a whole is that J.K. Rowling created a world that's too interesting for its own good. I wanted to see its breadth, its history, but the premise of the series doesn't allow for that. So many facts need to be set up, and even inconsequential details like what chocolate frogs are and the existence of scabbers oblige to need their due.
Because of this, there's a lot of clumsy exposition as to how this world works.
One of the worst offenders is when Ron tells Harry in the middle of the sorting ceremony that all bad wizards come from Slytherin, which, in addition to promoting a prejudice I think the series as a whole was always too comfortable with, it feels like a line they forgot to fit in somewhere earlier. In order to even have time for the main plot, parts of the film move at a very fast pace. We hardly know Harry before he's being told he's a wizard, and a number of scenes at school, particularly classes, feel rushed. That being said, the movie at least hits almost every major scene from the book. It just can't take its time with them. In this defense, for a short book a lot happens, but the film's attempts to cram everything in that it can leaves it lacking in consistent flow and character. And to be honest, some scenes from the book could have been cut. The reptile house scene is completely irrelevant, except to set up a development for the next film. There's a transfiguration class that exists purely to show off an effect. Even the Dumbledore opening isn't really needed. To be honest, I might have preferred the novel's opening with Vernon Dursley witnessing a number of strange occurrences. At about the troll attack, though, it sells into more of a steady pace, and more of a direct focus on the story. And when it does, it's very fun. What I always loved with the early Harry Potter books was that they were somewhat standalone mysteries, full of creative implications and ingenuity, as well as being about kids having adventures. And when it does get into the reveal of a Philosopher's Stone and they're investigating, it feels like an ideal kids' adventure film. Our generation's The Goonies, if you will, but with less swearing. The casting on this movie is pretty amazing as well. Maggie Smith and Alan Rickman bring the absolute utmost to their parts. Rickman in particular shining as Snape, a fascinating character even in this early an entry. Poor Tim Roth turned down that part for Planet of the Apes. Richard Harris and Robbie Coltrane are perfect in their roles. Harris just exudes a natural wisdom, and his kindness and gravitas wouldn't be replicated in the later films, which is strange considering that I think Michael Gambon is technically a better actor. As for Coltrane as Hagrid, I'm sure J.K. Rowling saw Blackadder's Christmas Carol and cast him because of that. He's pretty lovable, even if he is an idiot at times. Richard Griffiths and Fiona Shaw are entertaining as the Dursleys, feeling very much like Roald Dahl villains. John Cleese has a cameo as Nearly Headless Nick, which is pointless, but I'm all for more John Cleese. Ian Hart is surprisingly good, particularly in the finale, and I'm realizing more and more how good an actor David Bradley is, clearly having a lot of fun as Filch. Oh yeah, the great John Hurt is really great in this movie too. I wish he was in it more, and I still haven't forgiven this film for cutting Rick Mayall as Peeves. However, I have to say, and I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, the child actors are generally not good. It's okay, they improved as the films went on, and granted the script was really corny to work with in a number of places, but at the beginning, they were just ordinary kids. A couple who had screen experience before, like Daniel Radcliffe and Tom Felton, managed alright in a few scenes. The kid who played Dudley was pretty convincingly obnoxious, and some minor performances fared alright, like the Weasley twins, and Seamus, who just had to be the butt of a running joke. But Rupert Grint and Matthew Lewis were pretty awkward, and Emma Watson... oh, Emma Watson. She's cute and excited clearly, but her performance is pretty awful. You could argue her stunted lines and opaque reactions are part of her know-it-all character, but it's a stretch. These actors, though, all had the fortune of learning in this environment from the likes of Rickman, Smith, Harris, and Hurt. And hey, now Watson, as well as Radcliffe in particular, are fine actors. These actors were also working opposite some really good special effects. I love that this film used practical effects for most of the creatures, as opposed to even some of the later films where they were mostly digitally inserted. The makeup on the goblins, for example, is terrific. And one thing I really admire is how this film knew how to scare kids and did. The flashback sequence to the deaths of Harry's parents has always been creepy to me, and I actually prefer where they place it in the movie as opposed to the book. As is a cloaked figure drinking the unicorn blood, because they bring this frightening and dark magic into an identifiable context. That could be any house or any forest. Effects like fluffing Voldemort's face really hold up too, as is the demise of Quirrell, though that whole red herring is ruined by one shot of him during the Quidditch match. There's also that jump scare in the restricted section that's pretty good. Other effects, though, are pretty dated. Like whenever the kids are on broomsticks playing Quidditch, or when Harry's on top of the troll, it's really obvious those aren't real people performing those stunts. And the Sorting Hat does not translate well to film at all. As in addition to being real 1 minute and then CG the next, a telepathic conversation from the book is forced to be uttered aloud in the film, which makes it a little awkward. Norbert is okay, but that's another scene that, given the story went in a different direction with how the kids wound up in detention, could easily have been cut and not harm the film in the slightest. By
There are a number of scenes I can't help but love.
Of course, it's fun to realize little things, like how Hagrid calls a kid he thinks is Harry fat, how Harry seems to deprive everyone else in the train of any treats, or how Dumbledore just sticks around to Slytherin at the end. But there are other, more poignant moments. Like when Hagrid and Harry are walking through a crowded Diagon alley, or that first shot of Hogwarts as they sail to it on the boats, or when the kids are rushing to Hagrid's at night. The Mirror of Erised sequence is very well done, and it's one of those concepts that really ought to have been brought up more in the series, as it feels like something out of myth. Even if I've always thought suddenly seeing other people in a mirror would freak me the out. Harry and Dumbledore's conversation about it even provokes thought and allows for a good message.
It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live.
That line, I think, has significance for anyone who dwells perhaps too much on the fantasy of Hogwarts. Similarly, the climactic scene, also surrounding the mirror, is great, though there was no reason Harry had to go it alone. It has a decent Temptation of Christ moment, and that final bit of Voldemort's soul escaping through Harry always felt eerie, as did the close-up on the stone.
Hell, the scene with Harry and Hedwig in winter.
Though also completely irrelevant to anything, looks incredibly magical, and needs no dialogue to have an effect, as does the last shot of the train, taking off with Hagrid's distinctive figure walking back to Hogwarts Castle in the distance. To be honest, I think it's the best ending of any of the films on pure atmosphere alone.
Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone certainly doesn't hold up in a few regards.
Some of the CG is dated, the story structure is too concerned with getting at exposition and building its world that it leaves something to be desired in terms of character. A number of sequences adapted from the book aren't needed, and the child acting isn't all that good. But it does still have a fun story, great performances by the adults, a handful of brilliant scenes, some really good visuals, and a hell of a fantastic production design. And did I mention the awesome Drew Struzan poster?
It's definitely a movie that kids will get more out of than adults, but there is enough to satisfy both.
Though not necessarily a great film, it is an ideal family movie, and for the most part a pretty fun time and a promising start to the series.
And now, if an 11-year-old kid can do it, I'm off to find my own Philosopher's Stone.